Well, let's jump into this amazing film that's your directorial debut. I still don't understand how you come out with this film.
Second movie was The Matrix.
Considering the phenomenal popularity of The Matrix, the Wachowskis' previous film remains criminally overlooked. Sure, it has about a tenth the budget and is largely set in a single apartment, but it looks, sounds and feels every bit as good as its larger sibling. Let's see why. First, let's have a quick, spoiler-full recap of the film. If you haven't seen Bound yet, and you like The Matrix, or heist films, or gangster films, or lesbian romance films, or if you're intrigued by the combination, you owe it to yourself to watch it first. Okay, let's dive right in. In Act 1, Corky, fresh out of prison, starts a new dead-end job. Violet, wife of gangster mob Caesar and sex working for Shelley, seduces her. They talk about love versus work. Corky's convinced they're different, Violet isn't. They discuss Corky's criminal past. Caesar and the other gangsters, chiefly Mickey, torture Shelley to find out where the money is that he stole. Violet tells Corky her goal. She wants out. In Act 2A, Violet's husband Caesar cleans and counts the money. Violet and Corky plan and execute the heist. They start to trust each other as the plan requires in both directions. Things go wrong. Caesar doesn't run like they thought he would. He suspects his boss Gino's son Johnny, who they're framing, and also, correctly, Violet. He no longer trusts her. In Act 2B, Caesar kills his boss Gino, and Johnny, and pretty much everyone else. Cops arrive. Caesar hides the bodies from them. He looks for the money at Johnny's place. He calls Mickey and pretends Gino never arrived. As Caesar prepares to get rid of the bodies, a scared Violet phones Corky again. Caesar finds her and knocks her out. In Act 3, Caesar tortures Corky and Violet into saying where the money is. Mickey arrives. Violet works with Caesar to get Mickey to leave. Violet outsmarts and personally kills Caesar. Corky finally agrees she and Violet aren't different after all. As with pretty much any good screenplay, note how each of the four parts shows a separate overall event that progresses the story forwards. Act 1 shows Violet seducing Corky, culminating in her expressing her story goal. She wants out. Act 2A shows the heist, culminating in Caesar suspecting Violet. Act 2B shows everything going wrong. Instead of fleeing, Caesar kills everyone. This act culminates in Violet's husband forcing her back into the closet, a ridiculously apt visual metaphor. The third act shows the heroics, and as this is a noir tale of anti-heroes, Violet's resolve ends in the film's climax. She kills her husband, choosing her new lover. She earns her freedom. When most people think of whether a film's screenplay is well written, they focus on the dialogue as it's the most obviously written aspect. Those words make it all the way directly to the audience, but there's more to writing a good story than writing dialogue. Every event that progresses the story forwards is scripted. A good story consists of cause and effect at the macro through to the micro level, from whole acts to single actions, and involves working out which emotion to encourage the audience to feel at each given point. A good story is usually lean, with everything that happens contributing directly to its central premise, so that no single part could be removed or changed, and the whole still makes sense. Everything is necessary and perfectly balanced. This is the case with Bound. At the risk of sounding like Charlie Kaufman's objectionable agent in adaptation, Bound has really tight structure. As Lana was apparently prone to telling the ad-libbing cast,
well, you could not say that line, but on page 67, when you say blah, 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 it's not gonna make sense.
Although Bound had a modest budget by Hollywood standards, it still looks better than most films. Its stylized quirks foreshadowing the Wachowskis' next film, The Matrix. They know what they want and how to get it from a talented cast and crew. Bound shows time melting away while characters are being shot at and have to think fast. While slow motion wasn't a new concept, the seamless way they incorporate it is distinctive. It's clearly a precursor to the liquid space of bullet time that John Gator had helped them refine for The Matrix.
It was something that they were really interested in, in slowing down time and playing with time like that.
Bound also uses a rig very similar to the Snorri-Cam, even before Darren Aronofsky's Pi. As far as I can tell, this was a completely independent invention of the same technique, as the Wachowskis described the effect they wanted to key grip Tony Masucci, who rigged together what he called the attach cam. Further research reveals the same kind of rig was also used in Mean Streets in 1973 and Seconds in 1966. Hopefully by now it's a known thing and people can stop reinventing it.
The visual content, frame by frame, moment by moment, can really take your audience on an amazing adventure.
The Wachowskis' idea is that once you start a movie, it's a seamless web, always, and it's a chain. And there can't be any weak links in it. And every transition has to flow. You can't even know when you're leaving the scene and when you're in the next scene. It just has to flow effortlessly from one thing to the other. The transitions are all thought about, they're all pre-planned.
The Wachowskis seem to intuitively understand that films can be more like dreams than reality. Bound seamlessly flows from one scene to the next, using smooth trucking and booming wipes that appear effortless and barely noticeable, giving no hint of the painstaking work that went into producing them. This mostly takes the form of moving away from one scene to its nearby diegetic black void, moving towards the next scene from another black void, and then overlaying the two to hide a wiping cut. I'm not clear on whether anyone did this before, but certainly directors like Edgar Wright did it afterwards. And when he moved from low-key TV shows to big-budget films, naturally he hired the same DP, Bill Pope. When I say these seamless tracking shots are more difficult to make than they look, a good example of this is the anecdote about the sex scene, which involved a lot of people moving one fake wall while the camera was facing the other one, then vice versa, all while the actors were simulating an intimate moment alone.
The camera, it's on a big arm, and it comes up, from the truck we shoot, and then it goes into black, and then we put a cut in black, and we come up black, and it's built on a stage. This set, the Corky apartment is built on a big stage, so we could come up and go over the floor, and you see all the stuff on the apartment, but we go all the way around and look back, right? So basically, there's a wall that's hinged open as we come up, and we go all the way around, and everybody's like, so the whole point was that Gina and Jennifer were like, well, it has to be a closed set. It has to be totally closed. No one is in there who is not essential personnel. And we're like, yes, definitely, 100% close set. And then we started figuring out the mechanics of how we're gonna do it. And it's literally we don't have enough crew people to run in and take all this stuff and the clothes and lamp and get the thing out and we go around and the sheets and the thing, and there's strings everywhere and people are pulling stuff and the camera goes around and the door has to close and the other wall has to open. And so we're pulling all of the accountants. we have every driver on the entire shoot is basically working on that one shot.
I'm not sure how much was the Wachowskis and how much was Bill Pope, but a lot of attention was paid to working out the absolutely most stylish and thematic way of introducing each scene, regardless of how much more difficult it would be to shoot. Caesar's cleaning and counting money? Directly after a Jaws-style walking wipe introduces a closer shot of Violet's face for the last shot of the previous scene, we much cut it to an extreme close-up of Benjamin Franklin's face on a $100 bill, then rotate the camera 90 degrees, move it down, and rack focus to reveal it's one of countless notes hanging on string in their apartment like tree leaves, before tracking past a nervous Violet and a distrusting Caesar, ironing out the notes, literally laundering the money. Whew! Caesar's about to kill everyone? Introduce the scene by pulling out the dark recesses of the barrel of the gun, foreshadowing what's to come by making the object of focus clear. These are absurd levels of finesse that borderline on showing off, and I love them. Even when the camera simply following a phone line is meticulous enough to follow its loop. The film also makes good use of colour, with most costuming and set dressing using muted tones reminiscent of playtime. This makes the occasional reds used for subtle emphasis really stand out, such as Violet's dress, Corky's pickup truck and blood. There's also the rare flourish of green to complement it, most notably those leafy $100 bills. Violent subject matter aside, this kind of attention to detail makes the film pleasant to watch like a painting. Talking of paintings, the one in Violent's Hallway is symbolic of her marriage and even prophetic. All these stylistic flourishes serve to draw you into the movie's world without unnecessary distractions. Everything is purposeful, shown for a reason, be it a camera movement or a colour. This is easier for the viewer to digest precisely because it's more difficult to make, putting the onus of work on the creators rather than the consumers. The Wachowskis seem to relish doing things the difficult way, but not for the sake of it, only to benefit the film's flow or to emphasise key elements in a way that's also aesthetically pleasing. Bound has a very similar aesthetic to The Matrix, which isn't surprising considering they share the same writer-directors, DP, composer, sound designer and editor. not to mention the same character actor, Joey Pantoliano.
We couldn't find a single film in a genre like Bound is, where two gay characters went off and lived happily ever after.
Perhaps the most impressive thing about Bound is that despite being released way back in 1996, it stars a pair of lesbian characters who end the film victorious and happy together, kissing passionately before driving off in their pickup truck into the sunset.
Here was two lesbian characters who are the heroes of the movie, and they get away with it.
I've talked before about why I love Darren Aronofsky's Pi, and the same applies to The Matrix. But deep down, I suspect that behind the glossy facade of stylized cinematography and techno soundtracks, there lies a much simpler reason. As a bit of a loner who tinkers with computers, they resonate with me. While style, attention to detail, and plain hard work are all factors, Bound resonates with me too, in a way far more important and underrepresented. As a closeted lesbian, and indeed a closeted woman at the time, it meant a lot to me to see depicted on the screen women I could, crime aside, aspire to being.
The relationship that I have to the story really begins with me struggling with the depiction of people like me in media, I guess. So you'd have to sort of say, you know, I watch Psycho, I watch Dress to Kill, Sleepaway Camp, just like the endless films that are with trans people who are psycho killers and chopping people up. And it really hit me the hardest with Silence of the Lambs. And Silence of the Lambs is made by an amazing, brilliant filmmaker, and there's Jodie Foster, and I love her so much. But the film just made me physically sick. I couldn't even sit in the theater, and I ran outside and I went to the bathroom, and I was like crying in the bathroom, and I just sat there and I was trying to think of like one film that was set in sort of a genre world, and where an LGBT character sort of won and went off and lived happily ever after. And I'm like, I see everything, and I'm sitting there and I'm racking my brain and I can't think of one. And then I was just like, in this tiny, icky, sticky bathroom, I was like, I'm gonna make it.
So, hello?
Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
What?
You're blowing your only chance to get out of this. Repeat after me. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Yes? Okay, I understand. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.